Now, folks, if Joe Biden wins this election, I will completely reject his government as being legitimate, because he will not have won it. The following will have won it. The fake news media will have won it by pushing false narratives like the Russia hoax and not reporting on the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden corruption story, for example. Social media will have won it by censoring the Hunter Biden story and by generally censoring Trump at every opportunity. Fake pollsters will have won it by suppressing Republican votes with ridiculously high polls in favour of Biden, polls that were as high as 17% wrong. The deep state FBI and CIA, who have been deliberately undermining Trump from day one, will have won it. Wealthy Wall Street donors will have won it. Communist China will have won it by deliberately spreading COVID-19 around the world to destabilise the West, including America. Nancy Pelosi et al. Will have won it through orchestrating the bogus Trump impeachment. And of course, left-wing ballot counting centres across America will have won it through typical scummy left-wing cheating. Now, the following just scratches the surface.
In Pennsylvania, we're up by 400,000 votes, with 86% of the precincts in. 86%, and we have Republican votes still coming in from Trump country. And the Democrats know that the only way that they can win this election is to cheat in Pennsylvania. And we've seen it from day one. We've seen it from day one. We found ballots in drainage ditches. They're not letting our poll watchers watch the polls. They're not letting them inside. There's video after video of them passing out collateral material in polling sites all over Philadelphia. They're trying to cheat. They're trying to cheat. They have 3x5 printed big posters in polling locations all over the city saying to vote for Biden and Harris, which is totally illegal. They're passing out flyers. The supervisors of elections, we have them on video, certain ones wearing literally Biden-Harris face masks in polling locations, which is totally illegal. And now they won't let, and we brought one great gentleman here with us today, Jeremy, who's a poll watcher down at the convention center. They won't even let him watch as they count the ballots. They put them behind a fence 40, 50 yards away where they actually can't see the counting happening. Guys, this is fraud. This is absolute fraud. We've seen it in Philadelphia before. They're trying to make a mockery of the election of this country. My father is up by almost 500,000 votes in this state with 86% reported. And plenty of red counties left to go. Plenty of red counties left to go. We're going to win Pennsylvania, but they're trying to cheat us out of it because they know it's their only path to victory. They know it's the only path to victory. And so we came here today. We met with all our lawyers. We are going to file suit in Pennsylvania. It's a shame that we have to do that. It's the last thing that we wanted to do. It's the last thing my father wanted to do. But this is rampant corruption.
Jeremy? This is a gentleman, I'll have him introduce himself. This is a gentleman who volunteered 2 days of his time in order to do a civic duty and was obstructed in a horrible way by the crooked Democrat machine of Philadelphia, which really has been around so long, it's a shame.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Jeremy Mercer, and I was at the polls, or at the pre-canvass yesterday from 7 a.m. until just after midnight, back again this morning just before 8 a.m. until around 2:30. And as has been described very well, we're there supposedly observing, but we can't see. We're further away than I am from you all here, at least 100 feet away from open ballots that go back out of our sight. We can't see them. We don't know what's happening to them. It's just, there's no way for us to meaningfully observe the process from where they have us.
Could you tell us how many ballots approximately went through that process that you had no chance to observe?
Based on the counts that we've heard, it's about 125,000, maybe more.
Well, so that should be deducted from the count. Those are ballots that were counted in violation of the law. without an observation. And since this is a novel procedure, this mail-in thing, observation is particularly important to satisfy the possibility that you can defraud. This isn't as if you come in and show an identification. So that's what we're going to be seeking here and in Wisconsin, and quite possibly nationally, if there's as much evidence in Arizona and Nevada and Michigan.
Body enforcement announcement. So we want to know whether the sheriff is going to come to enforce the order.
Hey everyone, we wanted to give you an update. They are still not in compliance. Our votes are being suppressed. We cannot count the votes properly. What's happening is they have moved the barrier up to 6 feet, but they took away the ballot machines that were in the front row and moved them to the back of the building. It's unbelievable what they're trying to do to our votes that have been legally cast. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, your legal votes must be tabulated, and they're not doing that. They will not let us see anything. They're trying to drown us out now where we can't be heard. We're not going away. And now we're going to take further remedy to fix this. There's a woman who was in there that Corey's going to talk to you about who represented the city with your tax dollars, and he's going to tell you what she's doing. But we are not going to stand for this. We're not going anywhere. They are defying a court order by a judge, and this is not the last of this.
Listen, guys, your taxpayer money here in the city of Philadelphia is going to a private attorney by the name of Michelle Hangley. And what she said was, she would determine if the court order was valid or not. And I'll be happy to release the video of her. They have 8 attorneys fighting us to see these ballots inside. The court order is in effect. They will not give us access. And the sheriff has decided not to come down here to enforce that court order. The sheriff of your county will not come down and enforce a court order. What is going on in this city? What are you hiding? Open up the doors, let us in, let us 6 feet away so that we can have a free and fair election. Whether you voted for Donald Trump or you voted for Joe Biden, everybody has a right to witness what's transpiring here. This makes it look like a kangaroo court. We deserve better, and we're not leaving until we witness every single vote that transpires in here.
There is a interesting point about what can you see. Let me show you a photograph. This is the view. This is the exact point of view that...
Yeah, so how can a poll watcher see way back there?
A poll watcher sees. This is taken by GOP Trump activist Brian McCafferty here in Philadelphia. Has been involved in Republican politics for a long time, and Brian was angry about this. He wanted to get even closer. They were barred for 25 feet away. Then the federal judge ruled they could go to 6 feet. The City Board of Elections is appealing that. This is the view exactly of what a Republican poll watcher is and has seen inside that room, which seems to conflict completely with the Trump campaign lawsuit, and Trump claims that their poll watchers are not allowed in this room.
No, that is not their claim at all. They claim they can't see anything because they are restricted by a barrier.
In fact, earlier today, Brian told me how angry he was that he couldn't even get closer. Here he is.
I would like the judge to come here and define 6 feet for me, because we cannot see them, even though they've moved the desks up. I don't have a tape measure, but I'm going to tell American public, it's still 25 feet. We can't see anything.
The Trump campaign is rightly challenging a bevy of voting irregularities in key battleground states. The campaign has filed suits in Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania to stop vote counting in those states, and they also pledged to call for a recount in Wisconsin. For the latest on these challenges, we go to 2 lawyers involved in the fight. Harmeet Dillon, civil rights attorney and Lawyers for Trump national co-chair, and Philip Klein, former Kansas AG and director of the Amistad Project. Harmeet, take the audience through the process and what you all hope to achieve, because I think people are very confused about specifically what's happening in Pennsylvania. Harmeet.
Sure. Well, at a high level, we're still counting the votes in many states because of the COVID-related extended return periods in some states, and in some states have just changed their laws to allow people to turn in their ballots or the ballots to be received several days after. That's what's happening in Pennsylvania, although it's disputed, and the United States Supreme Court actually just tonight, right before your show started, asked the Democrats, asked the state of Pennsylvania to respond to the president's attempt to intervene in that pending lawsuit about the 3-day lag period. But in other states, we're talking about challenging the fact that Republicans have not been allowed to monitor the canvass and see whether, for example, signatures match, whether things are postmarked correctly, et cetera. And then there are other changes that the Democrats have tried to do, like in Pennsylvania, another lawsuit has been filed concerning the Secretary of State's ignoring state law and allowing people to have 3 more days to prove their voter ID if they're first-time voters. And so this thing about making laws up on the fly is really what is the basis of a lot of these challenges, as well as basic blocking of fundamental constitutional right of the parties to monitor the authenticity of the canvass.
The outlet 538 tweeted this earlier tonight, Phil. 2 more batches, I love this, batches of Pennsylvania votes were reported. 23,277 votes in Philly, all for Biden.
Yeah, all for Biden. Statistically impossible.
Philip, what? So Trump got 0 votes?
In any other year, that would be unacceptable, but this is unprecedented what is happening, Laura. We have massive private big tech money that poured through government election offices to impact and alter the election. And this includes in Philadelphia, Zuckerberg money actually paying the salaries of the election judges.
Yeah, did you hear that, folks? Zuckerberg is paying the salaries of election judges.
Now, in Pennsylvania also, we now have clerks and county commissioners coming forward and blowing the whistle on the last-minute change that Harmeet was speaking about that allowed Democrat ballots to be handled differently than Republican ballots. And in Michigan, right down in Detroit, we have a Democrat election clerk hiring Democrat officials to actually fill out and complete the ballots for other people without Republicans being present to ensure that that was done with integrity and validity. And altogether, this impacts tens of thousands of ballots. And what we have right now nationally is you have certain people running up to the line of scrimmage to try to spike the ball before anybody gets a replay look to make sure that the election is fair. And I'll tell you what, the bedrock of this nation is that we're all equal before the law, and that means all of our votes should be treated equally and with respect. And we will not get that unless we take this second look.
Well, I want to get up and applaud that. Thank you for that, Phil. Harmeet, we had the governor of Pennsylvania clearly feeling the heat about this process in Pennsylvania. So Governor Wolf responded to all these claims. He spoke out as well as the Pennsylvania Secretary of State. Watch.
We've seen efforts across the country to undermine this election and to block the counting of votes. These attempts to subvert the democratic process are simply disgraceful. I'm going to fight like hell to protect the vote of every Pennsylvanian.
When Governor Wolf was talking about how much we cherish and will fight for every voter's right to vote, I think about the suffragists.
She thinks about the suffragists. What? Nice try. Nice try. Yeah. Nice way to wrap yourself up in women's rights. Okay.
Laura, every time you see Democrats jumping up and down and talking about the Constitution and the rights of people, they are gaslighting because it is they who are blocking the right of American citizens to witness what's happening. They have bicycle barriers that are keeping our election observers in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia 30 feet away. Like from 30 feet away, how can you see whether signatures are being properly tabulated? What is happening with these things? Have they been filled out correctly? You can't. And that's a feature, not a bug. The same type of thing is happening in Detroit. The election workers are actually putting up physical barriers and cardboard to block the view of observers. And so this is disgusting. Yeah. And if you just switch the parties and it was Republicans trying to block the Democrats, you'd have the ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the NAACP.
Okay, hold on. One question to Phil. One question to Phil. Phil, if the roles were reversed here and you had 23,000 votes, 100% of a dump went for Trump, okay, and that rhymes. What would the Democrats be saying?
I don't have to answer this question, Laura. You know the answer. We'd be in a whole different ballgame right now, and the media would be covering this much, much differently. There are serious questions that need to be investigated about the operation of this election.
And John Roberts at the U.S. Supreme Court, it is a shock what he did in not taking that case to save this country from hurting the integrity of this election process. We want all elections to be fair. Every legal vote counted, not ones that are illegitimate, legal votes. Harmeet and Philip, fantastic analysis as always. Thank you so much.
Now, folks, I didn't see this one coming.
As we tape this one day after the presidential election, we still don't know who the next president of the United States is, but I can tell you this much. The left claimed one huge scalp last night. It was Fox News. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. We need more members, by the way. We'll get to that later. Gentlemen, I've never seen anything like this. I was manning the PJ Media live blog for about 12 hours yesterday, and Fox News has hired Chris Stirewalt, a partisan Dem and a big Dem donor, to run their decision desk. That is the desk that calls the winners in each state. And last night, it became a running joke at first that Fox refused to call Florida hours after everybody else had. Fox News refused to call Texas for hours after everybody else had. And then they went and called Virginia based on 1%. That one's still up in the air. They ended up having to rescind that one. They called Arizona based on voter surveys while people were still standing in line to try and vote. If you ask me, Bill, this is outright voter suppression on the part of Fox News and Chris Stirewalt by treating solid red states as though they were still up in the air and telling voters out west in states like Nevada and Arizona that it was all over, and telling Republicans in Virginia to go home that was all over too. You know, I expected a lot of dirty tricks last night, Bill. I didn't see this one coming from Fox, did you?
Now, this is the left-wing hack he was talking about.
So the bigger question is, let me just say one thing about what you said, because this needs to be really, really, really clearly understood. If you are a voter and it gets to be 2 or 3 hours after the polls have closed in the East Coast, in fact, even after the Central Time Zone where the Panhandle is, and they haven't called Florida yet, and they haven't called Georgia, and they haven't called North Carolina, and they haven't called Texas, you are inclined to think that this election is over and there's no reason to go vote in Arizona or Nevada. Now, how many people does that affect? I don't know. But if Biden's numbers were up, well, Biden won by 6 million votes, you could say it's still illegal, or it's still immoral, it's still undemocratic, but it didn't matter. But in this case, it does matter. It matters very, 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 very much. So that's just to say that this is not a trivial thing. This is not something without consequences. When a network, and by the way, and this is the critical point, this is the point. Every conservative in America is watching Fox News that night. Every single one of them. That's where the voter suppression needs to be. It doesn't matter what they do on CNN because they don't care about suppressing the vote for Democrats. It works in their favor. Every single person in America who's a conservative is watching Fox News. And when Fox News is saying, well, gee, Florida still has, we can't call it. It's been 2 or 3 hours. It's so close. Might go either way. And when Arizona is instantly called like that, and you're standing in line, it's fraud. Okay. So the bigger question and the more important question is, why did this happen? How did it happen? I know why it happened. It happened in order to suppress the vote. That's why it happened. How did it happen? And I've spent my entire career pulling for America and doing my best to shoot down conspiracy theories and all the rest of it. But when you hear, Steve, do you have any idea what, I'm just asking, do you have a rough idea what Fox News' annual revenues are?
Not a clue.
Is it billions?
I would assume in terms of revenue, yes. In terms of actual profit, something, much, much smaller than that.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this. When it is proven through income tax records that George Soros by himself puts $34 billion into American electoral processes, $34 billion. And that's, if you were to say, just for the sake of the argument, I don't have the evidence, but just for the sake of the argument, because I can't think of another reason. If you were to peel $1 billion off of that $34 billion and hand it to somebody at Fox News who makes the hiring decisions that allowed this to happen, I'm not even saying that they put it in their pocket. What I'm saying is $1 billion of income that requires no expenditures, right? You don't have to pay for the cost of producing shows to get that $1 billion. It's just $1 billion, whatever the number is, right? That number, that kind of money can make that kind of influence. And we are past the point where we can say things like, well, why do we agree to these debates that are moderated by Democrats? Why do we agree to these debates that are moderated by people who write, write biographies of Nancy Pelosi? Why do we agree to that? It's past that point now. The fact that Fox News is the home of conservatives, that's where conservatives were watching the election results, and the fact that that election was called by a Democrat who'd given thousands of dollars to Hillary Clinton, thousands of dollars to Barack Obama. We knew it in advance. Fox News knew it in advance. And Fox News knew that this would cost them their audience. There is no other way that I can explain it than to say that somebody got paid for that to happen.
Yeah, now folks, I was absolutely gobsmacked when I heard Fox News call Arizona for Biden with only about 75% in. And now it looks like the Republicans are on track to take back Arizona. And the Fox News decision team still refuse to rescind that call. Not good at all.